Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you a Hexblade Gloomstalker Ranger multi-class build in Baldur's Gate 3. What's powerful about this is at level 7 the Hexblade Warlock actually gets access to the Archphase spell list, which gives it greater invisibility, which pairs obviously very well with the Gloomstalker, which is based around stealth. So I'll be showing you a full build guide here. First, starting with the Warlock, I believe it has a better start as you get the option of casting spells and using your melee weapon as well. For cantrips, the two best are obviously Eldritch Blast and Booming Blade, which is extremely powerful to get. And for the subclass, we're going to roll with the Hexblade, which gives us access to the shield spell. Typically, we don't want to expend our spell slots on shield, but we do get ranger spell slots later on that we can use for that shield because it's a level 1 spell. I'd also recommend grabbing Hellish Rebuke too, or if you really like it, Hex can be nice as well, especially with the Eldritch Blast. Armor of Agathis is another good choice too if you prefer it. And we'll also go with an ability score spread of something like this works great. We don't really need wisdom from the ranger as we're not going to be worried too much about the spell save DC from the ranger. We're mainly adding it for the melee benefits. With this, we got charisma at 16 for the warlock spells, dexterity at 16 for ranged weapon and melee weapon attacks, constitution at 14 for overall health. You can swap your dexterity and constitution if you prefer. I just found this to be a bit more beneficial, and 10 intelligence and wisdom. Into level 2, we get access to another spell, which we should take haste. Wrathless Might if you really like it, or Armor of Agathis. Armor of Agathis and Hex being the top choices. For Eldritch Invocations, I really like to have the Agonizing Blast adding our Charisma modifier, but there is one that's really useful with Devil's Sight. This gives us the ability to see in magical darkness, so we can use our arrows and create darkness pockets with them. But I think best off, starting off, Agonizing Blast and Repelling Blast to give Eldritch Blast a big buff, as we're going to use that quite a bit early on. However, if you really want to use Stealth at level 2, you can go with Devil's Sight. We can also take it at level 5. Level 3 gives us access to another spell, and we get some really strong ones. Obviously, Shadow Blade is very brokenly powerful. We also get Misty Step, but we will learn this from the Ranger as well. If you want it early on, you can take it and replace a spell later on. I think that Hold Person just brings a big value to us. Darkness is good too if you took the Devil's Sight, as mentioned previously. So either Hold Person, if you really like it, Shadow Blade works well, and Mirror Misty Step, and replace it later on. For the Pact Boon, this is going to be Pact of the Blade if you're outside of honor mode, because this will actually stack with the ranger's extra attack. However, if you are in honor mode, Pact of the Chain or Pact of the Tome can be better. With Pact of the Chain probably be the best choice because you can set up surprise using the Quasit. But we're going to go Pact of the Blade, which allows us to use charisma for our weapon attack rolls. Now we can go all in on charisma here, which is really nice, so we'll roll with that. And then once we hit level 4, we get access to another cantrip, with Mage Hand being really nice to throw health potions, Minor Illusion to group enemies up before we get into a fight. Toll the Dead's okay. I wouldn't recommend actually over Eldritch Blast, but Bone Chill can be useful to stop the target from receiving healing, which is really good, especially against like Merkel. And also Friends, which is useful if you're the face of the party, although be mindful in higher difficulties that can set you up for disaster. I think Mage Hand's the best choice here, and we can use the Mage Hand to throw healing potions or water bottles if we have a Storm Sorcerer on our team. Now, the next level, again, Misty Step is really nice, Darkness is great, and Shadow Blade. We're going to go with Shadow Blade here, as this is going to be the strongest weapon that we can get in the game. It's really strong. You don't have to use Shadow Blade if you don't want to. Mirror Image, Misty Step, those are two good choices as well, and even Darkness if you like going with that. And we'll be able to see in it in our next level. Our feat. Charisma increase is going to make the most sense. It's going to give us increased spell casting and also melee attack rolls. The alert feed for the +5 to initiative is also extremely useful because going first in Baldur's Gate 3 is extremely useful. You could also go with the dexterity improvement, which will increase our armor class as well as it will increase the overall initiative. Level 5 gives us an extra attack, and it gives us another Eldritch Invocation, which I'd recommend taking Devil's Sight. Being able to see in magical darkness is huge because you can use arrows to set up darkness. If you got another sorcerer or anyone that's got darkness in the team, they can set it up and you can see in it. Extremely useful. We also get access to level 3 spells. Hunger of Hadar, very useful. This is one that I'd actually replace later on. It blinds targets, makes difficult terrain, and deals 2d6 cold and acid damage at the start and end of their turn. It's a nice spell, but it doesn't hold up later on in the game. Counterspell is also quite nice, although we won't have that many spell slots to use on it, so I wouldn't really recommend that. So for that, I would recommend actually Hunger of Hadar at this point, and we can always replace spells as we see fit if we prefer. Now, at this point, I actually think it's best to continue and swap over to the Ranger, because with the Ranger, we get a lot of extra benefits. We can get heavy armor proficiency. On top of that, with the Ranger, we also get access to Misty Step a bit later on, and we get that extra attack. Now, for the favorite enemy, the Bounty Hunter can be nice to give enemies disadvantage on their saving throw against ensnaring strike, although it's not always the most necessary thing in the world. That's where Ranger Knight's nice, be able to give you heavy armor proficiency. And the Natural Explorer, Beast Tamer for the Raven can be good too, but I think Wasteland Wanderer Fire is better. Getting resistance to fire damage, extremely useful. Level 2 gives us a choice in spells now. And again, we don't want to take stuff that's going to require us to have be able to get a saving throw off. So Hunter's Mark's a good choice. Ensnaring Strike is a little annoying. Long Strider can be useful too to buff up your entire team. And Fog Cloud, which will give you basically cheap darkness. So you could go with that level 1 darkness spell. I think that Hunter's Mark and Long Strider are the best. Our fighting style. Defense for the better armor class is likely the best. Although archery can be good if you really want to use a ranged weapon, and dueling if you want to use a melee weapon more, but I think defense just applies more times than both of those. Level 3, we get to take the Gloom Stalker. This gives us the Dread Ambusher, +3 to initiative, and on our first turn in combat, we get increased movement speed, and we get a free extra attack. We get our normal attack, we get our Hexblade attack, we get our Ranger attack, and then we also get our Dread Ambusher attack, which deals a 1d8 extra damage. Very useful. Superior Dark Vision, whatever, we don't care, we already have it. We get the Dread Ambusher Hide, though, a bonus action, Hide, which is great. Umbral Shroud takes an action, it's okay. Disguise Self, if you want to use any of the Gith weapons, you can use it with that. And we just take another spell slot. I'd recommend just Fog Cloud for another poor man's darkness. Into level 4, we get ourselves another feat. This can be an ability score improvement on our Charisma for better weapon attack rolls and better spell casting from the Warlock. Or we can add in Dexterity. With Dexterity, that's going to give us more initiative, better armor class, and it won't affect our melee attacks, it'll impact our ranged attacks. There's also a choice of going with like the Warcaster if you want to hold your concentrations a little bit better. Savage Attacker to increase our melee, our melee attack rolls a little bit better. I think that a better increases either Charisma or Dexterity. Charisma likely has the edge here, although both are great. Level 5, Extra Attack and Misty Step. This is a great level. And then we get access to level 2 spells with something like Pass Without Trace being extremely useful because we can actually get some crazy stealth going with this if we really want to build around stealth. Silence is also nice to shut down enemy spellcasters. Spike Growth's okay. Normally concentration would be a better choice on something else. So I think Pass Without Trace, +10 to stealth checks, greater invisibility. If you got that as well, those are two different concentrations. You can use someone to use greater invisibility on yourself. Paired with Pass Without Trace, you can't get seen. You're invisible forever. At this point, I think it's best to go back to the Warlock. We can get the Accursed Spectre, so whenever you take out someone that's afflicted by the Hexblade's curse, we can create a ghost, which will fight alongside us. Doesn't always apply. Call the Weak will stop it from appearing, so just a heads up on that. Now we get access to more level 3 spells. I like Counterspell, but I don't think it's the most powerful thing on this build. However, it can be a nice thing to have if you're needing to stop a spell from being cast. It's going to be better to use a Warlock for that, or a Wizard for that, but that can be an okay choice as well. And at this point, we can also replace one of our spells. If you're finding you're not using Hunger of Hadar, you can pop that off and take Darkness, which I believe is a little bit better for our purposes, because we can see in darkness and we don't get hurt like we would in Hunger of Hadar. And level 7, this is where we're going to end off, because we get Staggering Smite, which with our Shadow Blade is pretty strong. It adds a 46 of psychic damage. However, it does use our bonus action. The Resonant Stone really powers us up, because it'll double the damage from the Shadow Blade, and the Staggering Smite's 46 is also doubled, so it's like an 8d6 bonus to damage. That is crazy. You don't have to take that, though. We can also take Greater Invisibility. Again, if you really want Hunger of Hadar, you can take that. We also get Eldritch Invocations, too. Book of Ancient Secrets, not that good. You do get a free casting of Silence, which can be useful, but that's something to keep in mind. Dreadful Word gives you Confusion, which is good if you're the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel, because you can cast that for free. So that's pretty good. And even Fiendish Vigor is not bad, because this will give you 7 extra health points without expending a spell slot. I mean, that's not terrible. That's just an extra buff. So if you don't want to use any of these other spells here, that is a good one to go with. There's other choices like the Mask of Many Faces, which we already basically have that. Proficiency in Deception and Persuasion is also pretty good, so Beguiling Influence. Actually not a bad choice as well if you don't want to go with the extra health from False Life there. But another thing is we got our Staggering Smite there. What we can also do is then, if there's a spell we don't find ourselves using often, like Hellish Rebuke or Fireball or Hex here, I'll use Hellish Rebuke, for example. We can then also take Greater Invisibility. That's also a spell that we can use with a Band of the Mystic Scoundrel. Greater Invisibility is a really useful stealth skill. So we got Pass Without Trace, we got Greater Invisibility. These pair together very well if you want to go all in those stealth, but I'll show you what to do for gear. Also, this is a Spider Weave set mod, so you can check that out. If we want to go all in on our overall armor class, we can roll with this. If we use 2 more increases on our dexterity instead of the feats that we picked, we would have our armor class up to 31, which is extremely tanky. This is using the Wondrous Gloves, Evasive Shoes, Armor of Agility, Cloak Protection, and the Helm of Baldur. So if you want to be tanky, this is the way to go. However, I think this way is better. With the Birthright Hat for the +2 to Charisma, it takes up to 20 for melee attack rolls. Cloak Protection, better armor class. Although if you're the Dark Urge, the Deathstalker Mantle is even better, so we can go invisible. We also got the Armor of Agility. This adds our full dexterity modifier. And we only have a +3, but if we went a little higher, it'd give us a better armor class. We also can use things like the Armor Persistence because the Ranger gives us heavy armor proficiency, which will leave our armor class roughly the same, although without being able to use stealth. With this, we get a +2 to saving throws, and we can stealth it up if we like. The Ballless Armor is nice too if we want to use piercing damage at close range, but I think the best choice is, again, we get access to Shadow Blade, and we get Staggering Smite. We may as well take full advantage of that. Otherwise, we can use something a little different, like the Ballless Armor. Rain Drain Gloves, whenever we deal psychic damage, we inflict mental fatigue for 2 turns. So with the Shadow Blade, we can attack 3 times. Mental fatigue will give a -1 or -2, I suppose, for the 2 turns to their intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws. So we can land things like Hold Person much easier. This is a good choice. However, the classic, if you're late game, Helldust Gloves, additional damage and spell attack rolls is the best for a melee spellcaster hybrid. And also the Gloves of the Battle Mage's Power. This is extremely underrated here because with this, it was actually fixed in Patch 8. When we do an attack with a spell or cantrip that uses a weapon, you gain Arcane Acuity. But the big benefit here is Shadow Blade is a melee attack that'll actually stack with this. So we can use this to basically get a bunch of extra Arcane Acuity, which will give us plus bonuses up to +10 to our spell save DC, so we don't miss spells. Boots of Stormy Clamor, this is great. If you have the Illithid ability drain, this will give reverberation. It also works on the Booming Blade. Now, I like if you're early game, Knife of the Undermountain King until you get Shadow Blade going. For rings, the Ring of Elemental Infusion, if you're outside of Honor mode, when you do Booming Blade, it'll give you an additional 1d4 of thunder damage on your next attack, which is really nice. If you're holding a concentration, you can go with something like the Strange Conduit Ring, which will give you an additional 1 to 4 psychic damage whenever you're holding a concentration. And the Shadow Cloaked Ring will give you a 1d4 whenever you're doing attacks in darkness. So if we don't want to go, we can actually just stack up with both of these here, which will give us an additional 1d4 and 1d4 psychic damage, which we'll create with using the... If you use a staff that has a spell power here, so Arcane Battery, you can go ahead with giving yourself a free upcasted Shadow Blade. So boom, it'll replace your main hand weapon, and there you go. You now have Shadow Blade, which has 3d8 plus 1d4 of psychic, and then if we're in a shadow, we'll do an additional 1d4, or if we have a concentration, we'll do an additional 1d4. And then also, Hunter's Mark does psychic damage now too. So you can do a lot of damage with this, because you see here, Staggering Smite, it says upwards of 60 damage. That's actually 120 damage because of the Resonant Stone, which doubles psychic damage. That is crazy. So yeah, Resonant Stone shouts out, but that's what we're rolling with. I also like to have the Hellrider Longbow for +3 to initiative, and also applies Fairy Fire. However, we don't really need that much extra initiative. We already have a lot of it, so we could use the Gaunter Mail Bow here as well, which can apply a Guiding Bolt. With the arrow many targets, that's really good. You can also use hand crossbows if you like, but and even like the Dead Shot, which will give you an increased critical hit chance, is actually pretty useful. So if you don't need that extra initiative, you can roll with something like that. So I'll show what this looks like now in combat. And before combat starts, if you really want to go crazy with it, pop Pass Without a Trace. Maybe have your Bard or someone else cast greater invisibility on you, and then you can just continually attack from stealth. So that can be nice too. But you can also pop down Darkness as well, because it's not a bad option. So I cast Darkness, and it got me into combat. But what's kind of funny is it actually replenishes all your actions. And I think that's due to the Dread Ambusher, which gives you basically everything back. Kind of similar to the Assassin Rogue, which is strange, but it works. So what we're going to do is we got our strong melee attacks. We have the Hexblade's Curse bonus action, which we can apply, or Hunter's Mark, although we do have Darkness up. But the big thing is they're all blinded, and we can see within it. So what's great about this is the ring that we have on will give us that extra damage when we're obscured. But also Shadow Blade gets a benefit. You have advantage on attack rolls whenever you're using this blade, and in a lightly or heavily obscured area. So that doubles our critical hit chance, and then with the Dead Shot, if even further increase our critical hit chance. So we'll start off with a Booming Blade here first, which will likely one-shot this target. We rolled a 19 critical hit, that's what I mentioned. You roll 2 damage die, it gives you a big benefit. That was enough to take them out. Now we're invisible, which we can see through our darkness. I love that effect. And we're gonna go after this poor schmuck here who is just hanging out at the wrong time, at the wrong place. Yeah, 37 damage, but that's gonna one-shot him. Yeah, 50 plus 6 damage. Huge. But that's not all, folks. What's also nice about this is we got 3 attacks per action, so that means we can also go with a next extra stab, and we missed it. But that's okay, because we got the Dread Ambusher, which gives 3d8 plus 1d4 plus 1d4 plus 1d8. So yeah, go after whatever target's going to be the biggest pain in your butt. And we hit with that, so we don't need to use that extra crit. 52 and 12. Booyah. Now, we also want to focus on some of these others here. We don't have that many powerful, strong spells, but we got things that do a lot of melee damage, which is kind of funny. We're a ranger, but boom, yeah, 80 damage. With a ranger, we're more of a melee attacker. We're going to want to use our Shadow Blade in darkness whenever possible. 30 damage there. That wasn't enough, so we'll follow up with another one there. 40. Perfect. That took them out. So yeah, you can see there, 6 attacks plus the Gloomstalker extra attack for 7 total attacks. And then we get a bonus action, so this can be nice because we got Hex, which we can apply. I think Hunter's Mark works a little bit better because this will give us the Psychics damage. We also have the Hexblade's Curse, which is possibly the best choice. Also, Mind Blast is always good. 48 of psychic damage as bonus action. You can basically one-shot people. We're just going to apply the Hexblade's Curse on this target here, which also applies Reverberation to them, so that's perfect. And these are the moments where having Counterspell is really nice because you can stop targets from doing things that like Command Grovel, which are extremely devastating. Also, Psionic Dominance from the Aleph will save your spell slot, so that's a nice thing to have too, just to be able to protect your team and yourself. And for our next turn, we actually got them to draw forward a little bit. Kind of silly. They usually avoid the darkness. The AI won't let them go too close to it, but we'll start off with a Booming Blade again because that's going to be our strongest attack. We can use it once per action. We got the invisibility off. 56, 15, and 14 damage. Crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. So then we want to use our other 2 points from this action. I don't know why we're walking so slowly like that. So we're going to use our extra attacks on both these targets here. Hopefully enough to, yeah, get a knockout there. We're slowed too, so that actually did screw us over. We still got to deal with our slow, which is annoying in that target there. So if you didn't have a darkness concentration, we could use a staggering smite there, which will do a lot of damage on the target. We'll just go with a booming blade there to get that free easy knockout, and then we can follow it up our extra attack. Since we're going to do one attack per action, we need to break the concentration that this target has on their slow, so we're going to use Eldritch Blast to hopefully break that. And it was enough to break it, so perfect. And then that gives us our extra attack, which is kind of funny how this works. But yeah, you can, if you do an Eldritch Blast between while you have haste, you're able to do an extra attack. So let's go with a range attack there on that target. And we get the extra psychic damage from the ring that we have, which is kind of funny. And that was enough there. We'll go back, and we don't have any extra actions that we got. We actually can't really do much now because we have a lot of concentrations, but we'd also use the floor, so we were close enough. Again, Counterspell coming in clutch here. This will stop that target from hitting us extremely hard and basically taking us out, and it makes them stop their turn. So the beautiful thing about this is we don't need our darkness anymore, so we can go show them the full concentrated power of Staggering Smite. Boom! Yeah, 40 and 26 extra damage, and we go invisible from that. Our eyes are glowing from the Arcane Acuity, which we have 9 turns of, which gives us that spell save DC of 26. Even a ranger one will have a decent spell save DC, so that is a powerful Hexblade Gloomstalker Ranger Multiclass in Baldur's Gate 3. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit the subscribe button below if you haven't already, and I'll see you all in the next video.